Hey friendos, it's DW. We've all wondered at some point whether or not we could just delegate all of our tasks to an AI. I mean, if you're thinking AI, you've probably thought of this. And it sounds kind of like some sort of science fiction. But you think about things like generative AI, Google Assistant, Amazon Alexa, isn't there a way that these things together could actually make this personal assistant that we've all been dreaming about? In this episode, I talked to a friend, Timmy Kokke. He has taken this idea and made it real by taking a chatbot he built for his live stream and evolved it into a full on personal AI assistant he calls Rosie. We talk about the sorts of skills it took to actually build that assistant and where he sees it going in the future, but most importantly, we talk about whether or not it can actually replace him. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Welcome to Remember the Human. Well, thanks for being here, man. So,
Yeah.
so here's the thing. So I like to start all of these things with a very simple question, but it's never that simple. It's a different answer so far for everyone. When you think of artificial intelligence, like when you think of the term AI, what's the first thing that comes to your mind?
Oh, that's a tough one. Um, I think about movies, I guess. I really like Blade Runner, for example. There is
Ooh, it's a good one.
this assistant Joy. That's one of my favorite. It is an AI. It's a hologram. It's
Yep.
really cool. Um, and the same thing in other movies like um Ex Machina, I think it's called.
Yep.
With Ava, that's an artificial intelligence in the form of a human.
Yeah.
I think those things are really cool. Um,
So that's what jumps into your mind. I like that's a good spin on it because I haven't seen Blade Runner in a while. I love that movie. Joy's not a violent creature or anything like
no,
that. Do you know what I mean? Like I love the idea because my first guest we both jumped to like Terminator, RoboCop, that whole side of it. And then now it's like the other half of it where there's like these positive stories that are like, look, the AI can exist with us, maybe.
yeah. Otherwise, you get the Matrix
Yep.
or
Yep.
things like Terminator. Um, yeah. If I start thinking more about AI, then I start thinking about creating computer games and how AI works and worked in computer games, and
Mm-hmm.
then it it ends up in basically just a large switch statement. Just
Yep.
if this, then that, and then you have
Just the world's
AI.
largest switch statement. I love that. That's AI in a nutshell. It's just one big switch
Yeah,
statement.
yeah.
Okay, so we wanted to chat a little bit today about. I'm gonna kind of preface this for the audience. So I watched Scoot here on Twitch and YouTube a lot. We know each other from back in the Microsoft MVP days when I was still in Microsoft MVP, and like I saw those live streams, and you have this assistant that is named Rosie, and
Yes.
Rosie is an AI. Is that sound about right?
Yeah.
Can you
Today
describe
she is.
what Rosie is or who Rosie is? I don't know. I don't know where you put that, but
Yeah, I refer to her as a person.
yeah.
It yeah, it's right now she works as my personal AI assistant,
Okay.
just helping me with all kinds of tasks during the day. I actually have her running pretty much all day.
Oh, that's awesome.
Um, from a technical standpoint, she is just a Windows app built. It's an Electron app built with Vue.js and JavaScript.
Okay.
And besides, it's just my playground to try out things with AI. If I read something about something else or an API that comes, then I have a playground where I can just plug some things together and try it out and make something work.
So so that's great. I'm going to get into that. I want to talk a little bit more about that in a bit. But I'm going to kind of lay some foundation here for Rosie. So she's just this she's just an app, but she's your AI, and you've built Rosie yourself.
Yes.
See, that's crazy. Where like I love that. I love just that's such a great story. I love that idea so much. But like, what other things what have you like? What kind of things do you have running all day? Like, what kind of work does Rosie do for you?
Um, well, she started out as in my live streams
Yep.
as just an integrate. But every developer that starts streaming a development starts out with building a chatbot. That's the most simple things, and that's something everybody needs
Yep.
in the live stream. So that's where it starts, and it starts out with just the switch statement. If a comment comes in, you need to write something back into chat. That's where it starts. But then I want to have her answer questions that are asked in chat and respond to spoken questions. And then right now she works on ChatGPT with a slight focus on WebXR, which I work in normally, JavaScript, live streams. And yes, she helps me write blog posts. She can generate images.
Oh, really? That's cool. Okay.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things that came along. At some point, you could use DALL-E on Azure.
Okay, yeah.
And I had access to that, so I just integrated it, and
Yeah.
now I can give her a prompt, and then she generates a couple of images. I rarely use those, but she can do it.
That's really cool. Like, I just like the idea that to trace that journey back, you start out with like, I'm going to live stream, and the first thing I'm going to do is build a chatbot. So like I say, a big switch statement, like just people say something in chat, do something back. And then now it's evolved into, hey, Rosie, listen to my voice command and write some blog posts or generate some images or whatever. And just to bring it back to in terms of your professional development for yourself, like ChatGPT is relatively new in the grand scheme of things. Like I know when I started watching you on Twitch and stuff, like there was no ChatGPT. Generative AI was not in the vocabulary for any of us. And now you've just, again, you wove that into your, as you put it, your playground. And now it's evolved Rosie even further. That's great.
Yeah.
So you developed it, and I know you're a software developer. You've been developing software, and like you said, WebXR, so like web virtual reality for those that are not into the terminology. But that means I would argue to say like that means you're not a specialized AI developer. Like you're not some sort of like you've been doing this your whole life or anything like that. You just started gluing pieces together like a software developer. Like do you need some special skills or anything like that? Like what have you needed to use to build Rosie over the last few years here?
In my case, is what I needed to build her was just some knowledge of web development.
Okay.
Basically, you can do it with any development, but I like to write JavaScript. And just a whole bunch of curiosity. Just see if I can make it work. That's what I like doing. See if I can make things work. And with AI, that's basically it. I did have an interest in AI way back in the early 2000s with exploring how I could use a neural net.
Yeah.
But that was like, those neural nets were nothing compared to what we have today with ChatGPT and I like reading about how things work, but it's most of it is too complex for me.
Well, you know,
the real AI stuff.
Yeah, that's the thing. I kind of like to use the terminology like applied AI. Like there's something about that, like the idea of like there's about developing AI, which is like I was reading about this new model that came out today, and they're like, yeah, all you need is 512 gigs of RAM to get it started. I'm like, okay, well, I don't think I'm going to do that. But on the flip side of that, I looked at it going like, how do you apply these models and how do you get that into our world? And I think that's kind of where this podcast even comes from. Is generative AI seems to have sparked this like, I don't want to call it like a massive change in like how we can do work. Because I mean, you had an AI assistant for your live streams, and it was cool. Like that was a lot of fun. I remember I used to use the chatbot and like get Rosie answering questions for me in your chat, and she had her own voice. She had the voice synthesis going. But you know, now it's a whole different sport where like I can get AI. You can get AI to write a blog post, or I can get it to write emails for me, or this description for this podcast is probably going to get generated by AI based on the transcript. So there's a thing about that. So where I'm leading with this is now that you're seeing like you're using Rosie for your day to day, you're using it for all kinds of different stuff. That leads to the risk of people are worried about, you know, an AI replacing them. So do you think you've written Rosie and then Rosie is going to replace you at work or on your live streams or some various flavor of that?
No, I think not.
Okay.
Well, not right now.
Okay.
Maybe in a distant future, but right now I think I can be more productive with having Rosie as my assistant, and things like Copilot and tools that integrate. Well, Rosie actually integrates in VS Code, the code development IDE as well.
Okay.
But that's just one of those fun projects. Um, but I think right now I can be more productive when I use AI, and
Okay.
I think that might be the first ones that are being replaced are the ones that are the people that say don't want to have nothing to do with AI. I think those and they need to compete with people that use AI. Now, if I work somewhere and I can be 50% more efficient because I use AI, then yeah, I have, like, it's almost like Darwin.
Yeah.
I have a bigger chance of survival in in the workforce than someone who doesn't use AI. And in the long term, I think jobs will be replaced by AI. But that's just technology and evolvement in labor or something. It
Yeah.
just happened in the past as well. When machines were invented, people were replaced, and I think that's with that AI might do that as well. It's just the next step in the evolution of work, maybe.
Yeah.
And there will be new jobs that people can do, and some things that people don't want to do. If I can have an AI that makes my money, then why not? Then I can sit in the backyard, spend time with my children, and not work and still make money.
Yeah. Well, and
I would love it.
well, that
Replace me, please.
yeah, well, exactly, right? Like, I love that. Replace me, please. That's the quote. I think that's the title for this podcast. Just replace me, please. So I want to bring it to Copilot because there's an interesting line. I was watching a video the other day, a game developer conference talk about AI tooling and AI in game development. And he has this whole intro for 20 minutes about AI in games. And he said one of the things, he goes, AI is a tool, and I'm paraphrasing it, but he had this really great line that AI doesn't necessarily raise the bar, but it raises the floor. So when you put it into people, like there's the people that are just getting by. They're doing menial, repetitive tasks, and maybe they're happy doing their repetitive task that doesn't require a lot of effort or brain power. In my words, those are probably bad words, but they're just they're low effort kind of things, very repetitive, tedious tasks. If you can get an AI to replace them, suddenly people have to be more productive. But on the other hand, like you're a developer. Would you think that AI is going to you think it's going to require people to be, or do you think people will be required to be more productive? Like you're a senior developer, so using an AI to help you write, you would hypothetically need less junior developers working on your team. Do you think that's worrisome for like new junior developers coming on board? Or do you think that junior developers can be exceptionally productive from day one because an AI assistant could help them? Like where do you see that going in terms of software development and just improving the workforce?
I think they might be more productive with using AI.
Okay.
Um, when I started coding or software development way back, I don't think intelligence sense was
Nope,
invented yet.
it wasn't. I remember that too.
So uh, yeah, now you get some corrections on your code while writing your code. You didn't have that in the past.
Yep.
If you went out of bounds in your array, you just nothing happened. You just get the next byte from memory.
Yep. Yep.
And so there's already tooling in place that helps you. AI can help you even further. Is it wise to fully rely on AI? I don't think so. But it's the same with Stack Overflow, for example.
Yep.
You can just grab some code from Stack Overflow that hopefully does what you think it does, and dump it in your code base and hope for the best. And I think the AI tools might replace Stack Overflow at first.
Mhm.
But yeah, they just have it way closer to your code and in your code and contextual of your code. And just the simple repetitive tasks are the first things that AI can be really useful for. The other day I had a whole bunch of numbers, decimal numbers for representing colors,
Yep.
and I want them to be hexadecimal numbers.
Okay.
So I just said to Copilot, can you convert these numbers to hexadecimal numbers for me?
Yep.
And it worked. It converted all the numbers to
Just
hexadecimal numbers. It was all correct. And then I wanted to have a reference that was telling me what color it actually was. And even that, it was able to figure that out. It just came up with all the suggestions of the colors.
Yeah.
And it just said, well, this is red, this is brown. And it was not just fully red. It was some tint of red and
Yep.
some tint of green. And it figured out it was green and it was red and it just helped me out there as well.
That's
But
cool.
it saved me a whole lot of time. Now, I have seen Copilot go off the deep end many times as well, just into repetitive things and just like completely do nonsense. But yeah, that's just what it is.
Yeah, it's just a side effect. It's just I think the term
Yeah.
is a hallucination. I've and to be fair, I've written plenty of horrible bad code and nonsense in my in the late nights of programming in my time. So
Yeah.
So I like that example. Like, so my example of that too is I was doing just a hobby project. I wanted to convert some data files, like a YAML file, into JSON. And it was like, but it ended up being like I had a sample file. I also had like, it was going to be like 10,000 lines of like just blog posts and just data about my blog. I was like, this is hand bombing. I'm like, you know what? Hey, ChatGPT, like do this, and it just slowly ground away at this. And you think about that think about being that junior developer who came on board, they're on Team Saltcoot and they're very excited to do this thing. And then the first job is, hey, convert all these decimal numbers into hex. And that's your job for what, like a month or whatever, like stuff. I love the idea of like getting rid of that work. Cause I think, so my point there is I think that junior developers can be higher quality learning when we get those repetitive meaningless tasks out of the way. I had a job for a whole summer working for a big firm locally here, and they had me remove BR tags from, I want to say, 2,000 or 3,000 web pages. I did it all summer. That was my whole job. And when I finally did the code review, they're like, "Oh, we forgot. We don't need that anymore." After 4 months of going through this giant federal application, and I was like, I still think of that when I see the code changes and stuff like that from ChatGPT, going like, would have been done in an hour, maybe 2 hours.
Yes.
Anyway.
Yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit more about Copilot. So like we talked about coding in terms of work, but a lot of work, I mean, and you're a senior dev, so you're still coding. Unlike me, I'm an architect, so I just talk about coding now for a lot of my work. But there's a lot of communication aspects around software development. Like coding is not the one thing we all do. We have to do emails, we have to do documentation. Are you concerned at all about AI potentially writing a lot of the first drafts of that stuff for people, even if it's emails or whatever? Like, because ChatGPT, with Copilot coming into Office and Teams and all these places, it's going to change how we communicate with one another a bit, because I'm probably going to get ChatGPT to write a lot of my emails for me, and I'll edit them. But what's your take on that? Like are we going to lose some human connection there? Do you think about just the work stuff?
I think there was this cartoon a while back where you have someone use ChatGPT to write an email, just typing out a list of terms that need to be in the email.
Yep.
ChatGPT generated the email, and on the other side, someone received the email and used ChatGPT to filter out the list of items.
Okay.
But that's basically how it will be. You need to write an email. I often write a first draft of an email just using Rosie in my case.
Yeah.
Which is basically ChatGPT 4 with some little things extra in the prompt. But that just saves me a lot of time. It's just writing the first draft.
Yeah.
Especially if it has to sound professional.
Yeah.
With all kinds of expensive words. I'm not sure if that's an official English term for it, but
No, it sounds right.
so, and then just that first draft, and that's what AI is really helpful for. And
Yep.
then you reread it and change it a little bit. But that it saves just maybe 10 minutes, but it is that 10 minutes that you can just spend on something else that's productive.
And well, those 10 minutes add up. That's one strong communication. Another way that I've also found in my case is sending frustrating communication when I'm angry or upset or a decision's happened. There's emotions involved. I'll always get
Yep.
ChatGPT to write it first. Forces it to like, well, hold on, we're not going to yell at people, and it cleans it up a little bit. It gets nice. And then my ultimate favorite, once I finally send the email, I post my email post production is I say, okay, write it a third time, except make it sound like a pirate, or use excessive cat emojis, and it does it. I love it. I absolutely love making it write my emails in emoji format. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful like chef's kiss on that. Like
Now I have to build that in Rosie as well.
oh yeah.
Well, I do a similar thing with blog posts.
Okay,
I
go
have
ahead. Yeah, I want to hear about this.
so I'm using semantic kernel
Okay,
for most of those things. And it's really good for chaining different steps and combining different sources.
Yeah.
So what I can do is I've tried it out with just one sentence and then generate a blog post. I have some funny things lined up somewhere that I need to save this. This is funny. But it just creates a first draft, and then it goes to the second stage, and then it changes the tone of the blog post.
Yeah.
And I've specialized it so that it's a big prompt that is just specialized for my style of writing.
Mm-hmm.
And the style I want to have my normal blog post in. It's just light and a bit funny and not too heavy. But I can also just say, well, this post I want it to be a formal blog post,
Right?
And then the tone is completely different. No emojis, no jokes, and I also have one that is a hacker that is using lead and all kinds of crazy things. Kind of like the emojis. So I'm going to add one that uses an excessive amount of emojis. That will be funny.
I love the idea. So I've been playing with ChatGPT for my own blog since I saw you did a live stream. I saw that and it really just kicked this whole thing into my head. And I was like, it would be great to have a translator of different flavors of translation on my website, but not translated into like English to Dutch or back and forth, but rather English to Leet speak and then into emoji speak, like just these crazy made up things just to see and just have that on the webpage. Just translate this into emoji speak and just change it up. These are great features. Like this is what the internet was invented for. Those AI people like, yeah, we want people to translate emails into emojis. That's why we invented ChatGPT.
Yes.
So let's keep going with this. So you have it generating your some helping you edit your blog post. So essentially, again, Rosie comes back as essentially your personal assistant. And do you see more and more people either developing their own or this becoming the next wave of like this is how work will happen? It's not so much the fear aspect of people are going to have their jobs replaced, but I think everyone's going to need their own personal assistant, kind of like how everyone uses like people use calculators. I'm not going to say everyone needs one. I certainly like having one on hand all the time. Do you think ChatGPT and like generative AI specifically, I guess, but AI in the workplace is going to become like the next level of calculator? It's going to transform how we do things? Is that a bad thing or a good thing?
I don't think it's a bad thing.
Okay.
And I think we will see more like that. There are a lot of little websites, they're not actually little, I think, but websites that pop up and just create ideas for you, or blog posts, or titles for YouTube videos, or all those things that just mostly the first draft of something, and yeah, those are coming to Windows and integrate in PowerPoint and just Word. Just have the tools right there where you need them the most. I think it just saves a lot of time.
I do love the idea of having Copilot in a PowerPoint slide deck, especially the because I actually did this for a conference. I actually created a talk on. I forgot to submit a talk, to a development conference that's local, and so I had ChatGPT generate an outline. I submitted that. I was done in like usually it takes me a few hours to do. Like it got me the whole outline, a description. I was like made a couple tweaks. 15 minutes later, I submitted it. It's by far one of the best talks I've ever given. Uh, I'm doing it again in a couple months, and I'm like, this is great. Like, what a great, like, that was 15 minutes of like, oh, I forgot at like 11 o'clock at night going, oh man, should probably submit this before the deadline. So, yeah, like, I love the idea of having it there for the image generation and all this other stuff. I love that idea. We're kind of covered Rosie a lot. I just want to kind of talk a little bit more about like the future and the potential. Let's focus in on Rosie. So what's next for Rosie as far as you can see? So you said like, so we got her writing blog posts for you. You've got or writing the first draft of blog posts. You got her helping you and coach. She integrates with your coach. She's doing some of that work. Like what's the next feature and she can talk. I just want to be very clear for the audience. Like Rosie can talk already and respond to text. Like that stuff. That's old school. That's nothing. Those are old features. So what's next for Rosie though, in your view? Like and basically what would you like to play with next on Rosie?
Well, one thing that I have a really long idea list of things I want to build on Rosie. For the near future, I want to integrate with YouTube.
Oh, okay.
Since I'm not streaming to Twitch as much,
okay,
or rarely, but more to YouTube. I want to have the same thing I had on Twitch. I want to have on YouTube. So, but that's just basically integrating with the YouTube API.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a lot of tools I want to integrate with, like Discord and Twitter and Teams and the browser, maybe, that I just can say. I have experimented with it already. You can create transcript of YouTube videos.
Okay, cool.
So sometimes cool. I don't have time to watch an entire video or an entire podcast. I don't know.
Yeah.
And
that's fair.
And the idea was that you just say, well, give me the highlights. And it actually works. The difficulty is, and that's what I haven't figured out to do yet completely, is often these things get too big.
Okay.
So, and a simple blog post or a short YouTube video, the transcript of a short YouTube video works fine. But for example, I want to have those things for a book.
Okay.
Or a longer YouTube video, or a conference session of an hour and a half. That will be difficult to put in. So that's something I want to figure out how I can just make that work.
Yeah.
I've also working on embedding things. I've done some experiments. One of the downsides of ChatGPT and GPT in general is that it's based on older data.
Okay. Yeah.
I think it's 2021
yes,
that
something
ChatGPT
like that,
was based on.
Yeah.
So a lot of things I work with, like WebXR, is newer than that.
Yeah.
And I want to have that integrated as well. So that's something I've been working on as well. Just have in my day-to-day job, just also have those newer things integrated in.
Right.
And they have to set up databases and vector databases, and then it becomes really that you need to have more knowledge of how AI works, and it's not just calling an API anymore.
Yeah.
But that's fun. And something I really want to have. So Rosie has a voice.
Yeah.
It's running through a vocoder to give it like an electronic voice.
Okay. Yeah.
But I want to have a face as well, and I've done some experiments with that.
Wait, what do you mean by have a face? Like on the screen, like an actual
yes.
like how like so we can invite Rosie to the Teams call next time for the next podcast.
Yes, exactly, exactly
okay.
that. And so you can get with the speech API that I'm using.
Yeah.
You get the shape of the mouth.
Okay.
You get back from the API, and I've experimented with that as well, just by having some lines and pixels move around based on those movements.
Yeah.
But technically, you can automate the movement of a mouth based on the spoken text. You need to somehow figure out how to get it back in sync.
Yeah. But you're getting,
because
if you've gotten this far, you're getting close. It sounds like.
Yeah, but I also need to have a face, and that's difficult. But you can use AI for that to generate a face.
Generate a face. Yeah, exactly. You can just generate a face, and then and you gotta animate it. Like I bring this back, go back 2 years even, like when you started live streaming or you're doing more live streams and you had like your go back 2-3 years. Like, is this a thing that you even saw in the realm of possibility in terms of like being able to implement? You're going to build a chatbot on Twitch, and then someone comes up, future Timmy comes up and says, "Hey man, just so you know, that fancy switch statement for Twitch is going to be a talking face in 5 to 6 years." Like it's exponential leap forward. Like, how do you see this going forward? Like, are we going to keep seeing developments like that from where you're sitting? I know you're not an expert in the whole. I just want to get your take on that. Like, it's been exponential growth, it seems, over the last 5 years. Are we going to see the same sort of thing in the next 5 years again?
I hope.
Oh, you hope? Okay, awesome.
Just I like this stuff.
Yeah.
It's just the technical things. Well, if I at the start I mentioned Blade Runner, Joy. That would be the ultimate thing, just to have a hologram.
Yeah.
Just have a real Rosie sitting next to me, and
that'd be add that to your WebXR to-do list, right? So you have that, put the goggles on, put the Apple goggles on, the Apple Vision headset, and then see Rosie sitting there just doing some work.
I've done some experiments on the HoloLens.
Oh, really?
But I don't want to just grab a 3D model somewhere from the internet and that's it. I haven't figured out how I want to have it look. She needs to have personality.
Yeah.
One thing that when Rosie first got into the whole AI thing, I was using GPT-3, no ChatGPT yet, and she had a personality.
Okay.
She was quirky, and that reflected in the answers she was giving. If you ask something, she was going to take over the world. She literally said that. I remember one time I was building a game to shoot zombies, and I asked her what the best way was to get rid of a zombie, and she just said, "Well, there are no zombies, but here's a detailed explanation of how to get rid of a person." It was hilarious. Now those things, ChatGPT won't do those things.
Yeah.
I like horror games.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, GPT is useless for horror games.
Yeah.
It just gets blocked. I want to give her back her personality.
Yeah.
And that's something I tried in the prompts, but it's too formal still.
Yeah. So I think that's the thing. So I'm seeing more and more of that stuff develop. And I know that like there's like communities like Hugging Face, and then there's all these groups that are like trying to, I don't want to call it democratizing it. Everyone uses it's overused term now, because if you need half a terabyte of just physical RAM to run one of these things, to train it, like that's not very democratized. There's only a handful of places that can do this. My PC is not going to run that.
Nope.
But like, so the idea of having your own personal assistant, I love the idea. I've actually even been working this last year, especially on trying to create a competitor. I wouldn't call it a competitor, but I call it a inspired project that I've dubbed Luna so far. Like that, so I want Rosie and Luna to have a chat one day and just see where that goes on.
That'd be fun.
Do a live stream. We'll just let it run and just see. We'll update the podcast. We'll put it up on YouTube and just see how that chat goes.
Yeah. Then it will be really remember the human. You know when we had humans doing these podcasts.
Remember when we had humans? That'll be that podcast. Exactly. We'll just be sitting in the background. You're like, I think we just got fired. Like, oh man. Okay. So I think that's gonna just wrap it up here. I think that's pretty good. But actually, sorry, I had one more question I did want to ask. Sorry, last thing. Personality is one of those things that made Rosie super charming. You said that's a great line, And you said like there's these limitations on it. Do you think there's something that AI can't do that you don't see happening in the next 5 to 10 years? Like, do you think that's just a bridge too far, or like that's where the human really succeeds? Like humanity is like, this is the thing that humans are great at. AI may enhance it, but it won't replace. Can you think of something that really applies to that? That's a limitation of AI.
But I think maybe the personality and the emotional kind of
Yeah.
part of things. I think that's with 3D rendering.
Yeah.
We are finally at the point where you cannot tell the difference between a 3D model and a real person.
Right.
But it took 30 years to get there. And for the longest time, there was this slight thing in like a glow in the eyes or something.
Yeah.
You felt it wasn't the real.
Right.
And I think that might be something to get just generated text. You have these sites that check if your text is written by GPT. With a little bit of customization in your prompt, it's not very hard to get around that.
Right.
Just make sure you don't use certain terms or constructions of sentences. So that's easy.
Yeah.
But to get the next step to where emotions get involved, I don't think the AI will replace that very soon.
That's actually a great answer. I like the idea of that's what, and to be fair, think about that. You emotions, good or bad, make us human. It's a big part of a lot of things. So I'd say it's a great point. I never thought of it that way.
Yeah, and making decisions based on that.
Yeah.
So humans can make a decision if we have to choose between two bad things.
Yeah.
We can make a decision, and I'm not sure how an AI can make a decision without killing humanity at the end.
Yeah. When you do the math on how we do things, there's no logic. The logic doesn't really apply. So that's a good point. I think that's going to wrap it up for this. Did you have anything you wanted to promote, like your YouTube channel or Twitter? Like, where can people find you, or like, what do you want to promote, if anything?
Well, my YouTube channel is it's not the most active YouTube channel, but I sometimes stream or upload videos. It's just youtube.com/sourcecode.
Okay.
And I often write to my weblog, and that's timmykokke.com. Just my name.com.
Okay.
Basically.
Awesome.
That's it. And those two places. If you want to find me somewhere, just type sourcecode and in any social media or whatever you can. That is
I can confirm that. I think because after I left the MVP program, I had lost track of like everyone. And I did Google, like, what was his name? I remember Soulscoot or something. And then, boop, you came up on Twitch. And I was like, oh, man, this is great. I subscribed. And then here we are now doing a podcast together.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, I want to say thanks for everything. Thanks for being on the show. And I'll put all those links for folks in the show notes as well. And again, thanks for being here. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was fun.
All right. Subscribe, follow, and learn more at www.rememberthehuman.ai.